Okay, so this is the final talk of the day. Every talk has been totally awesome. Holy cow. I'm blown away by just the knowledge of everyone. Okay, so I'm Taylor Otwell. I created Laravel. It's been about 3 years ago now, and I'm really the main maintainer, really the only maintainer of all the issues, all the pull requests, all the new features, kind of filter through me. I'm kind of the BDFL or whatever, like the guy from Pearl.
Don't die.
If I die, you can just all go use YOLO PHP. So. Yeah, fly. Okay, so I'm going to start out by just kind of reviewing where we're at with Laravel, just real quick, just like a state of the framework, I guess. Previous Laracon, Laravel website, we're getting about 10,000 hits a day, pretty good, pretty respectable. This Laracon, we're at about 38,000 hits a day, so we've had a pretty significant jump in the past year. A lot of new traffic to the framework, and I think a lot of that is thanks to just you guys and girls that make these tutorials, videos, blogs, all kinds of educational resources that really make it easy to get on Laravel for any web developer, new or anyone that's brand new to web development or that's been around a long time. So thanks a lot for that. We also have beeping at Laracon this year. We have vanity Twitter accounts popping up mid-conference. But this year, Laravel's kind of become more mainstream. I feel like last year it was kind of a tight-knit group, and we were all still sort of early adopters a little bit last February. But now we're getting more mainstream. We have about 300 contributors to Laravel 4.x. That's not counting any of the Laravel 3 stuff, which is really a totally different deal. We have about 7,000 closed issues. We've become the most started PHP project on GitHub, the most watched PHP project on GitHub, and about 1.2 million composer installs to date on Laravel 4. So a lot of usage. We have a lot of community projects. Laravel.io, where the forums, the help system, the paste bin, all that stuff is on Laravel.io. That really takes a lot of weight off my shoulders because I used to run all those forum servers, and it's just kind of one more thing to worry about. We have Laracast, which is awesome. Jeffrey puts out a ton of educational content on Laracast. And then we have just various other learning resources, blogs, and tutorials, like I mentioned. So thanks a lot for everyone that puts out all the time into making those resources. Upcoming releases, we have Laravel 4.2 this month. I would release it now, except that I'm waiting on Symfony 2.5 to go stable, because obviously we depend on like 12 or 13 of their components, and so we need them to go stable so that all the composer stuff works out. Laravel 4.3, of course, if you didn't know this before, we're on a 6-month release schedule, just like Symfony. We are on the same schedule as Symfony, same month, because we're kind of tied to Symfony on some of the foundational components. So Laravel 4.3 is in November. Laravel 4.4 will be May 2015. Laravel 4.5 will be November 2015. So no big Laravel 5 announcement today. That's not even really on the radar. We're going to stick with Laravel 4 for a while. Just to highlight some of the new stuff in Laravel 4.2, it's an easy upgrade, which is a welcome relief. Previous Laravel upgrades have not been as easy. Laravel 4.1 wasn't too bad. Laravel 4 was pretty big. But 4.2 is pretty much a drop-in. You can just do a composer update and maybe change like a few things. It's not more than, definitely not more than a day, probably not even more than an hour. So very easy upgrade. Some of the highlights, we are bumping up to PHP 5.4 as the minimum requirement. That lets us do some cool stuff with traits and some of our components. And also it's just time. I mean, PHP 5.3 is kind of end of life now, so. We are bumping up Symfony 2.5 like normal. That brings us new Symfony features kind of upstream. They have various new features, which I'm not even really familiar with the details of what's in that. Mailgun and Mandrill API mail transports, which gives you a better alternative sometimes to using SMTP. It can be faster. You get like less timeouts usually. Daemon queue workers, which is vastly less CPU resources on your queues, because a daemon queue worker basically spins up the queue worker and it doesn't reboot the framework on every iteration like the queue listen does. It just spins forever. And there's kind of a one reason QListen does do that is it makes it really easy to deploy because you don't have to really mess with your queue workers because they just always pick up the new code. With the daemon queue workers, you actually need to let your jobs drain out of the queue before you reboot them. So, but at the added benefit of much better performance. We moved the soft deleting stuff into a trait instead of just having a property, so you can use soft deleting trait instead of the soft deletes property. Authentication and remindable traits to like fill out that boilerplate that comes in the default models. We now confirm destructive migration operations, so if you try to migrate in your production environment, you'll get a, hey, you're in production, are you sure you really want to possibly destroy all your data? And you can hit yes or no. And there's also a force flag for any kind of scripting you're doing to kind of make that stuff run without any prompt. Global eloquent scopes via traits is kind of an advanced topic, which I'll let the documentation cover. Environment variable files are the new .env.php files. Have you seen those? They let you kind of load stuff into the env superglobal. It's kind of a convenient way to keep sensitive stuff out of your code base on GitHub. So if you have like a database password, instead of putting that in your GitHub source, you would put it in this .env.php file on your server, and you would in your config file, you would use the $_env database password. So, Laravel Cashier, we are moving to the official documentation, although the component is still optional. It has been upgraded quite a bit with thorough documentation on the website, which I'll be pushing up after my talk. Latest Stripe API, multi-currency support. Of course, it uses PHP 5.4 trait, the billable trait. And seriously, it's like the easiest subscriptions you've ever written in PHP. I've used it on a couple of real projects now, and it's just so productive to get monthly billing up and running, downloading invoices, basically everything you need to do for a SaaS startup app. This is what some of the cashier code looks like. If you haven't seen it, you just say user subscription, monthly, create, give it your Stripe token. You can cancel subscriptions. You can check to see if someone subscribed. You can say, are they on a trial? Are they on a grace period? What a grace period is like when you cancel on a SaaS app, you know how you kind of continue to be able to expect using it until your billing period would have ended? You know what I mean? That's the grace period, so you can say, hey, are they canceled, but their subscription really hasn't run out yet for what they've paid. So it handles lots of little gotchas like that you have to do with billing, things you have to worry about. You can resume subscriptions. You can increment the quantity of subscriptions. So like on Snappy, we charge by user, and we use similar functionality. We actually wrote all that before Cashier, but we increment the quantity on the subscription. You can pull invoices, and you can download invoices, which generates a PDF, which is, I don't know if you've ever tried to do that in PHP, but it's not pretty. It handles all that for you. Okay, so what's next for Laravel? A lot of people have been asking me about Laravel 5. Where do we go from here? And so the rest of the talk will kind of address some of that. And when I think about where to go from here, I think about what got us here. And one of the things that got us here, which people have mentioned today, is the ease of use of Laravel. It's easy to get started. It's easy as a first framework. If you've never coded PHP, you can just make a simple routes file. You can throw a view out to the screen, and you can kind of start being productive and getting a good kind of feedback cycle right from the beginning. But if you're a pro, you have IOC, you have more advanced features that kind of cater to more advanced architecture. And the framework kind of grows with you in that way. And we have a friendly, inclusive community with the forums, the IRC channel, Laracast, and that really, I mean, that's maybe even the biggest part of Laravel's popularity is the community resources. So the goal is, or my vision for Laravel is to have simplicity from download to deploy. So from your first download of Laravel, from the time you first install it to deploying your application out into the world for other people to use. And a big part of that is something called Laravel Homestead. And Laravel Homestead is going to be an official Laravel Vagrant box that is pre-packaged for super fast installation. It has a seriously dead simple configuration file. If you've ever followed me for like the past few months, you know like I was not a fan of Vagrant. And a lot of these kind of birth pains were trying to figure out Laravel Homestead. And the configuration for Laravel Homestead is really amazingly simple. Like, trust me, you can do this. It will be an awesome development environment for you. If you are already on Vagrant even, or if you're on MAMP or WAMP, something like this, you can do this. It's set up for running all your projects on a single box instead of having like a separate Vagrant setup for every Laravel project. You have a simple configuration file that lists all your little local domains, and they map to directories, and it's all ready to go. It's all provisioned. It provisions in like 10 seconds. I'm not talking about like 15 minutes. You can Vagrant destroy and Vagrant up in like 10, 15 seconds because a lot of things are already prepackaged, like all the slow stuff, like the included software. And it's feature packed. It includes Nginx 1.6, PHP 5.5.12, MySQL, Postgres, Redis. The database is already created for you, so you don't have to worry about that. They're ready to go. It includes Memcache, Beanstalk for your queues, Node with Grunt, Gulp, and Bower, Laravel Envoy, and Fabric if you like Python. It's kind of a similar tool to Envoy. And like I said, if you're on MAMP or you're on WAMP and you've been struggling with, I like Laravel, but I can't use Memcache or I can't use Redis because I don't know how to install it on my box, you can do this. There's graphical installers for Vagrant. There's graphical installers for VirtualBox. That's all you need to do is just run those two installers on Mac or Windows, and you're off to a good start. Once you have that installed, Vagrant box add, Laravel Homestead, and it will download the box onto your machine. And this is the configuration file I was talking about. You can see right here, this authorize is, you could add like an additional key to let you SSH into your Vagrant box. Like Vagrant will let you SSH in by default, but this, you can use this if you have another key you want to use. This keys right here, say you already have keys on your main box that you use to get into other boxes, it will just copy those over to your Vagrant box so that when you run Fabric or Envoy, like you're already kind of authenticated. It's just sort of convenient, more of like a copy and paste these keys to my Vagrant box. Your folders, you can just map. You just say map this folder on my local box to this folder on my Vagrant box. And your sites, map homestead.app to this Laravel, which would be the public directory, like with a basic Laravel install. When you run Vagrant up, it will just read this file. It will set everything up for you with Nginx, all your virtual hosts, all the site configuration is ready to go. And then you can just hit homestead.app or whatever .app, your app.app, and pull it up in your browser. Okay, so Laravel 4.2 is configured for Homestead by default, and what I mean by that is we now ship a local database configuration file with the database name set to Homestead and the user set to Homestead, so that when you clone down Laravel and you set up your local environment, you can just migrate. You don't have to configure any other database stuff because your local stuff is ready to go. So it saves you a few minutes every time you set up a Laravel box. More on Homestead. There's something called Laravel Settler. Settler is a really cheesy name, but it's what builds Homestead. So like if you want to say, hey, I really like Homestead, but it'd be cool if we could kind of tweak what's installed this way. Laravel Homestead is kind of the repository and the scripts that build out that box that we package up and then upload to a server. So that's where you can contribute if you're interested in kind of participating in how Homestead looks. And all the documentation for Homestead is really thorough. It's ready to push up right after this talk. It will be right on the Laravel website under the kind of the installation section. You'll have a Homestead section. And what it does is it gives us like a unified development experience for developers on their local box. So when you're on the forums or on GitHub, you have something you can say, oh, I'm on Homestead. We know exactly how that's configured. We know what's installed. And we can give you a nice development experience from the get-go, without junking up your laptop. Because I know I used to always worry about like installing stuff on my laptop, and now like my Mac OS is all jacked up, and this virtualization and Vagrant thing is really nice. And this makes the barrier of entry like zero, like really low. And that's going to be available today. So I'm going to ship that out after the talk. So is that pretty good? Pretty. Okay, but there is more. There's more to it. And what good is an awesome app if you can't share it with the world. So you've got an awesome app on your local box, but if only you can see it, it's not that great. So Homestead is cool. It's cool for you, but what about the rest of us? So I want to talk about something called Laravel Forge. And this is something I've been working on for about 7 or 8 months now, a long time. And Forge is really exciting. I think you're going to like this. And it is instant PHP platforms on the cloud of your choice. So think Homestead in the cloud, basically. It's servers for artisans. Cheesy, shout out to Grumpy Programmer who loves every time I use artisan in my talk. It is a SaaS app. It will be at forge.laravel.com. It does automatic server configuration, so no more Googling on how do I set up a subdomain with my Nginx on DigitalOcean, none of that, it's all automatic. It's tuned for PHP and Laravel, but it is framework agnostic. And it sounds familiar because I mentioned wanting to do something like this at the last Laracon with PHP Artisan Deploy. And this is kind of like the culmination of all that vision. And the vision was to make a unified kind of road from download to app that people can use. That was the vision behind PHP Artisan Deploy. We just weren't there yet mentally in terms of what that would look like. And you bring your own cloud. So what I mean by that is it works on Linode, works on DigitalOcean, works on Amazon EC2, works on Rackspace. It just plugs into their APIs. You link up with whatever account you like. So if you like Linode, you can use Forge with Linode. If you like DigitalOcean, of course, you can use DigitalOcean. And the pricing varies, for each provider. So you pick your offering that you like best. And these virtual servers stay on your account. So these are your virtual servers. You have full access to these servers. We're just kind of helping you manage the provisioning and configuration of these. And no more of this. My shared host only supports PHP 3. Please don't upgrade Laravel. I'll never be able to use it. That's all over. You can definitely have a nice PHP 5.5 environment. I like to think of it as Homestead in the cloud. So you have pretty much the same stack. You have Nginx 1.6, PHP latest 5.5.12, which just came out a few weeks ago. You've got your choice of MySQL or Postgres. You've got Redis and Memcache. You've got Beanstalk for your queues. A lot of people have, I feel like, not benefited from some of the more advanced Laravel stuff like queues because they simply don't have a server that they can do it on, or they don't feel comfortable setting up their queue listeners. So now anyone can really take advantage of the most advanced Laravel features. And you have Grunt, Gulp, and Bower available to you as well if you want. And we also support HHVM. If you want to try out HHVM in Hack, click a checkbox, we'll install it, it's ready to go. Just add your API key, and this is what it looks like. This is the default screen. You can see here, we generate a nice, fancy Heroku-style name here. You pick your server size, your region. We can configure a database for you. We can install HHVM. Once you create your server, you're ready to go. You've got your IP address. You can hit it, and you'll get the PHP info screen. Everything's ready to go out of the box. It takes 3 or 4 minutes to configure a server. So for the rest of this talk, I'll kind of walk through everything that Forge can do for you, and I'll talk about it and then kind of show you a screenshot. I wasn't sure that the internet would be as good as it is here, so I'll actually be able to demo it for you today as well. The reason I did all these screenshots is kind of preparation for if we have no internet, just to show you what this is like. Okay, so this is kind of your server dropdown. We can see all your servers you have ready. And that's not all it does. It doesn't just create the servers and then you're kind of done. It's a lot more than that. You can kind of use it for the life cycle of your application. It does Nginx site management, so it can automatically configure Nginx sites, multiple domains, subdomains. All you do is literally type in your domain, hit create. It will create the Nginx configuration for your server, and it will create the folder, for the publicly accessible directory. This is what it looks like. So when I manage a server, I just go to this Sites tab. I can type in a domain right here. I can configure this web directory, which is default to public, which is what Laravel uses. I can just add a site, and it will all be configured here. And really, I'm good to go. I'm ready to deploy code to this site. Pretty cool. Passwords are disabled by default. Like DigitalOcean will, maybe some other providers will have passwords by default that you use to SSH in. We turn that off when we configure the server. You have to add an SSH key to get into the server. You should probably have like a password protected SSH key when you generate your key, and then you can authenticate with your server. Your database is not open to the public, so that's firewalled off. You'll have to use the SSH tunnel option in your like Navicat or SQL Pro, but you can connect to your database from those nice GUI applications and look around and manage it. So it's really nice. We have a little facility for just adding those SSH keys, your public keys. So you just add your name, similar to like you would with GitHub when you add a SSH key to GitHub. Just paste in your public key and add it, and we'll add your key onto the authorized keys file on your server, and you can get right in. Make sense? Scheduler. So cron jobs have like this really kind of antiquated looking format in your cron file. We kind of make that a lot more human, so you can configure any cron jobs you want. It takes just a few seconds to set up a scheduled job. You can make it run daily, hourly, weekly, or whenever you want. You can create your own custom job frequency, and you can even view the logs for your job right from Forge. So I just hit the scheduler tab. I type in the command I want. This is defaulting to the Indata's scheduler or dispatcher component, what you would normally use. You can pick the user you want that to run as, pick your frequency, just schedule the job. You can see right down here, I can view the log, or I can even just delete that cron job. So basically just a brainless, just come in, pick nightly, type in your command, done. You don't even have to worry about looking up or Googling that star or asterisk syntax and all that. If you hit custom, you can actually type in, like a custom cron expression or whatever, if you need to kind of get more specialized. Does that look good? I have to Google this like every time, so this is really useful for me. Maybe this is just for me. Okay, so private networking. Forge can even link your servers via private networking. You can create an app server and say, maybe I want to create a database server and I want my app server to be able to talk to my database server. I don't want the outside world talking to my database server. It will configure your IP tables or using UFW, and we'll configure the firewall just how it needs to be so that your app server can just talk to your database server via the private IP, which is displayed for you. So it's really easy to have a little bit of scaling there. Forge itself runs on several servers. It has worker server, database server, web server, and I configured that whole stack in like 10 minutes with built Forge. So that was really, really nice and cool. With private networking, it's super cool. All you do is just check the boxes I want to be able to connect to. It lists your other servers for that provider and for that region. And I just check the box and hit update network, and it will configure everything for me. I can just connect straight to the database, and I'm good to go. You can also add custom firewall rules, like say you're running React PHP on port 1337. Just add that rule so that traffic can get in through that port, and it will configure the firewall for you. Just takes a few seconds. Is that cool? I like it. I'll get through one more, and then I'll take questions and then before I keep going. Server monitoring. I don't want to try to do server monitoring with Forge. This is not really our thing. So what we can do is we can automate the installation of New Relic. We can install that extension for you. We can get the configuration all set up. You just plug in your license key or whatever, and we'll do it for you. You can do Papertrail. So Papertrail is a nice app that kind of like, it's almost like a log tail, except just in the browser. And it can aggregate log files and other things like that. We can install that for you using it installed the syslog configuration. So that's really handy if you're still like logging into your server and kind of like trying to parse the log files, like just catting them out or whatever. You should check out Papertrail. It's really nice. And of course, New Relic provides really detailed information on the performance of your server and processes and things like that. So that's kind of how we do server monitoring with Forge, is just kind of integrate with those services, kind of the smartest thing for us, I think. And this is what monitoring looks like. Like you can see, you can just plug in your New Relic key or your Papertrail host and port, and we'll get it all set up for you, and you're ready to go, and you can start monitoring your server in New Relic. While I'm here, you can see up here is a little bit of information. This is your public IP address. This is your private IP address. And just other various details about your server up here in the status bar. Okay, pretty good so far. Any questions on that portion so far?
Would you be able to upgrade PHP or HTML fields once it's already been deployed? Or would you
No.
have to manually go in?
No, it's not a managed. It's not a managed thing. It's still a VPS. You know, I don't want to pitch it as like a total managed server. It's kind of a jump start, I would say, to get you going. And we do configure automatic security updates for Ubuntu, but we do not like upgrade PHP for you or anything like that. So one idea for that is I want to have like almost like a blog that says, hey, a new PHP is out. Here's how you can upgrade your server, and kind of let people manage that, because it's just, you know, that's a lot to take on, obviously.
Custom PECL extensions, you just manually set those up after you deploy?
Yes, which we do install the Mongo extension. So it is ready to go. We install all the kind of common extensions you would probably want. Mongo, you know, of course, like MB String, Mcrypt, all the PDO stuff is ready to go. You know, a good solid PHP install is in there by default. And there are ways to automate the installation of other ones, which I'll show you. Okay.
Do you have, or does the schedule have time zone support for the schedule?
The question was, does it have time zone support? And when you create a server, it will create it with your time zone. So if you create a server, you would be in Amsterdam time zone. And you can, if you want to change that after the fact, there's no way to do it from Forge, but you could do it in your server, I guess. Take a couple more if I keep going.
With Assembler being open source, is this something that you could potentially fork and like deploy Laravel-based applications in a similar manner?
It's not, Forge is not open source. However, Homestead is very similar to a Forge stack, which is open source. So yeah, you could kind of look at that and kind of customize it however you wanted to. But the Forge code base itself is not open.
It's not clear to me how Forge and Homestead connect each other.
How Forge and what?
How Forge and Homestead connect each other.
They don't really connect to each other. They just provide similar stacks. So Homestead is for your local environment. It's like a virtual machine using Vagrant, and it has a very similar stack to Forge in production. So the same server and the same PHP, and you know, similar tooling with Memcache and Redis and all that. But they're not really directly tied together in any way. All right, I'll take a couple more let me keep going a little bit and then I'll come back. Okay, there's even more that Forge can do beyond that stuff. You can install your repository. So it can clone from a GitHub repository that you have access to. You authenticate with GitHub using OAuth, of course, and it can run Composer install when it does that, and it can even run your database migrations, which is kind of a Laravel-specific thing for Laravel projects. What that looks like is you would come to manage the site. You would do your repository. You can select a branch you want to deploy, and by default, it's going to run your Composer install, which, you know, if you have a composer.lock file in your repository, it's going to install all those dependencies. You can run your migrations for that initial installation so that your database is ready to go. And once that is installed, you get this screen. It looks a little different, but the tab changes to look like this, and you have a few more options called Quick Deploy. You can edit your deployment script, and you can deploy now. You have HipChat deployment notifications, and you can uninstall a repository totally from the site and get right back to a fresh PHP installation. So it's really slick for like deploying out a repo, testing some stuff out, just wiping that out, going back to a fresh PHP really fast. I mean, just in a few minutes. Okay, Quick Deploy is push to deploy. So similar to Heroku or FortRabbit or any other kind of platform as a service, you push, and it when you enable push to deploy, it configures the GitHub webhook, which calls back to Forge, and we have ways of kind of managing the push to deploy so that things get queued up for deployment. It all happens, it's really quick. And if you kind of push, again, real fast before one deployment has finished, we manage all that so that the latest code will go out. Okay, and like I said, you can get HipChat deployment notifications, which it links you to the GitHub commit that was just deployed. And so you can click right on it, see what just went out, and you're up to date. When you're deploying, your status bar will be, this will all be live updating. You don't have to refresh anything. And we'll let you know that your site's deploying, and it will switch back to active when your deployment is done. So it all runs on Angular and Pusher. It's all very like live and responsive and cool. And when you uninstall the repository, you can click this option to roll back your migration so that like if you set up your Forge database and it's kind of got all these tables on it, when you uninstall, just hit that rollback so that your database is back to a clean database for your next test project or whatever. Does that make sense? Okay. That edit deploy script button. So when you create a site on Forge, this is the default script that will run when you push to deploy. It will obviously just change into that directory, git pull from your master, composer install, and then migrate. Really basic, standard deployment script for simple applications. You're free to edit this however you want. This is a nice, like the ACE editor, so it's got all the highlighting and tabbing and all that, and you can kind of configure whatever script you want. This is really cool for if you're doing something simple and you just want a simple deployment script. If you're doing something more advanced, you could use like Fabric or Envoy or like a real SSH task runner or something like that. You don't have to use the push to deploy or any of that at all. You can use whatever you want. This is just a really convenient way to keep your project up to date. Okay, so once you have your deployment ready, you go back. You can just hit this deploy now button if you want to deploy like outside of the normal push. So for whatever reason you just kind of want to trigger a manual deploy, you can just click that button. It goes through the same deploy process as if you get pushed. And like I said, you can uninstall a repository which rolls back your migrations if you want, gets you back to a clean slate. Okay, we can also do environment variables. We can actually set variables in that .env file. And of course, we don't store any of these environment variables. We just set them in your file and we're done. We're out of there. We support multiple environments. So if you want to set if this is your staging server on Forge, we can set your staging environment file with whatever you want. Keeps your passwords out of your source so you can kind of open source your project at any time without leaking any sensitive passwords or anything. Okay, so it's a really simple screen. You can just add a key and a value and an environment, and we'll install it. We have no way to show it to you because we don't have it. It's just on your server, so I can't show you like your current environment variables. Those are only on your server, and I have no way to show those. So you can add and remove those, and it will keep that file up to date so that your environment is ready to go with your credentials or whatever you need. Pretty nice. We can do queue workers even. We can instantly start queue workers. They're monitored by supervisor. We configure supervisor for you so that they're restarted if they fail. And we can configure, the amount of time you want to rest in between your queue not having any jobs. So like sometimes if you don't have a real busy queue, you might wait like 10 seconds before checking so you don't run up like an SQS bill real high, checking like every half a second. So if you're on a kind of a low volume thing, you might set that a little higher. We also have a checkbox for the new daemon queue mode, which will be a lot easier on your CPU, not spinning around the framework so much. That's really easy too. All you do is just add your connection, and you can just start the worker. You can start as many as you want down here. You can check their status and even restart them straight from Forge to see how long they've been up or any of that process information. So it's really easy to just click that button 3 or 4 times. You've got a nice queue setup going. You don't have to worry about setting up supervisor or kind of Googling all those settings and all that. So really handy for setting up queue workers. Now, really anyone can use queue in production, without having to worry about setting everything up just right. I feel like that will open up queues to quite a few more people. This is what the queue status looks like. It just kind of shows you like their last status we have and their uptime. And we also can do like the easiest SSL setup you've ever done. SSL is something that most people I feel like have to Google. Like even people that have been programmed for quite a while usually have to look up the commands to like generate the signing request and then the key and all that. We can actually generate that signing request for you and show it to you. It installs in seconds. It's really easy to do SSL. There's no like extra monthly fee like Heroku's like 20 extra bucks a month just to do SSL. It's really simple. All you do is just type in your normal SSL stuff like your state, your city, your organization. We'll create a certificate signing request, which you can get. You can come back. You can buy your certificate wherever you want. We'll install that certificate onto your server, and then you can activate that certificate. You can add multiple certificates and kind of swap between them. So like if you buy a different certificate and you want to put it on that site, just generate a new signing request and buy your certificate and just swap the activation, and we'll swap the Nginx configuration so that that certificate is used. It's super easy. It really is. If you've never set up SSL before, you don't be scared by it. This makes it's really pretty painless. Is that pretty useful? Just me? Okay, so that's that certificate signing request. This is not a real certificate or anything, but you would just take this to wherever your certificate vendor is, and then you use this to get a certificate from them, and they kind of walk you through that process wherever you're buying it from. Then you come back, you can install your certificate, and we'll put it on your server, activate it, just click the little lock button, you're ready to go. And the next thing is recipes. Recipes, you can actually save bash scripts onto your Forge account, and you can come back and run them across multiple servers at the same time. And we'll email the results to you, and this is an easy way to save common tasks. So like, say I'm always spinning up a Forge server, and then like always install like a certain Peckle extension in like every Forge server I always make. I might save a recipe to just do that install for me, and then I can just like click to run that recipe, and it gets run, and I can see the results in my email that it was installed successfully or whatever. It's really useful if you spin up like 3 servers real fast. You can just pop the check boxes for all 3, install whatever you need, or configure whatever you need, and it's done. This is what it looks like. You just name the recipe. I have one down here called install Mongo, which would obviously do that, and then you could install something else. And you just type in your script. It's a similar editor to the bash deployment script. You add the recipe, and then you come down here to the run button. Pick your servers you want to run this recipe on. It'll go off and do it all, and that box will close, and you won't get any feedback. You'll get feedback once they run, but that's kind of all there is to it. Eventually, it'd be cool to kind of make these shareable or something, but right now they're kind of just on your account. Does that make sense? Recipes? You can archive servers. So a lot of people, especially if you're running kind of like a sensitive app, it'd be kind of weird, or maybe you feel weird about letting Forge kind of like maintain the server for you. You're not really comfortable with them having like an authorized key on your server. What archive lets you do is you can disconnect the server from Forge so that Forge has no access to that server anymore. So like you provision it on Forge, it's ready to go, it's out, and you're like, I'm done with Forge for a while, I'm just going to archive that server. We'll take off the key out of the authorized key file. We have no way to get into that server anymore. We don't know anything about that server. So you retain total control of that server. That's totally in your possession. What you can do is go to your profile, see a list of all your archive servers, and reconnect them to Forge. So you're like, oh, I archived this server, but I meant to set up SSL before I did it. Just reconnect it to Forge for a few minutes, set up SSL. You can archive it back again when you're done. So Forge, doesn't have to maintain access to your servers if you don't want to. You can use it for a few minutes at a time, archive your server, and you're done. This is a really cool feature for me because, if we're running something, like even something like Snappy, we might not want Forge to have access to Snappy servers all the time. We might just use Forge to configure a few things and then archive that server until we need Forge again later. Does that make sense? This is what that looks like. You just archive the server. It says you can reconnect it at any time. It shows up in your profile like this. There's a reconnect button. When you hit reconnect, we will generate a new key pair to access that server and give you a bash command. You'll need to SSH into the server. Just copy and paste that command, and that will grant us access back onto the server so that we can manage whatever you want to do. And then you hit done, and it'll be back in your server dashboard. We also support 2-factor authentication. So like my Forge account, when I log in, I do my username and password, and then I have to go to my phone to Authy, which is an iOS or Android app, and get a token to log in. You can enable this for any of your Forge accounts at no extra fee, and it obviously gives you more security than just a username and password. It's more reliable internationally than SMS using the Authy app. because it's just kind of like those old RSA like token or cards that were like credit cards that you used to get, and it has a rotating password every 20 seconds, and it will prompt you for that password when you log in. Other services like DigitalOcean or GitHub have two-factor authentication as well, so you can enable that for your account. And this is your profile. You just add your country code and cell phone and enable your two-factor auth, and you're ready to go. So, what do you think? And the goal with Forge and with Homestead is they're related in a visionary sense, and that the goal is developer happiness from day one. So we want Homestead to give you a really nice local development environment. If I like it and it's on Vagrant, like it must be pretty good because I was not a Vagrant fan. So trust me, it's a really nice experience to download Homestead, just Vagrant up and be up and going with all the things you need in 10 seconds without messing around with your laptop or your Mac or Windows machine to do your local development. Laravel, we want to continue our focus with expressive syntax, great documentation, wonderful community, and then that simple server configuration and hosting deployment options for anyone at a really affordable price, so that you can have, from day one to the day you launch your idea, you're kind of unhindered by any roadblocks. So you want to have a good experience all the way through from download to deploy. And we want to have, Laravel, we want it to be the premier PHP dev platform the whole way through. So Laravel, it's more to me than just like a pure code framework and something that kind of nerds get together and argue about and talk about. It's like a brand, it's a product, and the whole thing, I want it to be streamlined and really nice for you to use, and kind of every area and all the peripheral components and all that. So that's kind of the goal and idea behind Homestead and Forge and even Cashier and things like that. The pricing, we're just going to do $10 a month. You can do as many servers as you want. And this is unlimited servers and sites and deployments and whatever you want to do. Of course, this is not including your Linode or DigitalOcean server costs, because those are $10 or $20 a month. This is just for your configuration, your push to deploy, your queue worker management, all that. So still, $20, $30 a month, you can have a pretty nice dev setup and server management setup. So substantially cheaper than I think most platform as a service options would be, if you don't mind having a more VPS type approach to your system. So you can kind of weigh the benefits and drawbacks and see what you like, give it a shot. Just $10 a month. There's no you don't have to buy in for a whole year, so you can just try it for a month. If you don't like it, just cancel it any time. You can continue using it for the rest of that month you bought, and if you like it, of course, hopefully you'll keep going with it. It's going to launch Monday, pretty soon, so it's all ready to go. I will demo it for you if you want, since we have good internet. And you can kind of see it in action. I think it's a little better to see it in action. I'll actually deploy some stuff. I have some stuff ready. I'll show you the push deploy if you want.
Yes.
And so, what time is it here? Oh, we're still pretty good. Okay, good. Okay, so by the way, this domain's been out here for 6 months with stuff on it too. No one's really seen it. Okay, so I'll just go straight to the demo, and maybe we can just do some questions during the demo and just kind of see how it goes. All right.
Taylor,
Yes.
on SSH keys, are you going to store common ones so you can, or your server admin for a company might be able to put their common ones on all their servers?
Yes, I did not. I'll show you that. I'll show you that in the demo. So the question was, if you have an SSH key like you always add for every server, can you add that kind of like some other servers do, where you can just put it by default on your server when you create it? The answer is yes, you can add that in your user profile. Just add your MacBook or laptop key, and every server you create will get that SSH key by default. That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Multiple keys too, not just one key. So you could add 3 keys by default.
Instead of putting in GitHub API
GitHub's API for what?
I think they have the API to get all your SSH keys.
I didn't know about that. I don't have that right now. I actually didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I think it's just your GitHub username/keys.
I got you. Just, okay, just gives you the public keys, I guess. Just a second, I gotta go to my phone. You can see this, but. Okay, so this is my Forge dashboard. I actually have 4 servers ready because just in case we could do this. I've got 2 DigitalOcean servers, 2 Linode servers, New York and Newark, and everything's ready to go. And so let me just go into a server. We'll kind of get started. I'll show you a few things. Right here's your server drop down. Let me make this bigger for you. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Is that pretty decent?
Hit the full screen button, top right. Yeah.
Okay, so right here, of course, you can pick your server size. I went up to 16 gigs. If people really want to go higher than that, just let me know and I'll add them. But I just kind of got lazy typing in all those options. And but like, those are pretty big servers. But just let me know. I'll add it. It's not a big deal. It's been a lot of long nights. So anyway, when I go into one of these servers, right here's my sites. So like I said, if I want to add like another domain, just foo.com, I can type it in. You can see it right down here spinning that it's installing. And I only have a couple workers running, so it might be a little delayed right now, but it should only be a few seconds. It will configure that Nginx site and get it all ready to go and configured for you. Let's see. Anytime now. Like the slowest one ever. That's weird. Error logs? You can do a paper trail or New Relic or something like that. So you can set that up in the monitoring thing, the monitoring tab. Let me see here. Did it come back yet? Huh, that's weird. Is my internet up? Odd. Let me try this. I only had like 1 worker running because no one's really using this right now, so I'm not sure if that guy's down or what. Is it? How did you know it was overloaded? Oh yeah, he says pusher's overloaded, but all right. Okay. All right, well, anyway. Yeah, it is working. All right, well, my pusher's overloaded. Y'all must be hitting this site or something. Anyway, it configured the site, and I can go in here to manage it. I'll just go ahead and delete this site because I'll use this default one to show you. Gosh, I was like sweating. But anyway. That would have been mind-boggling because that queue's been up for like 20 days. I mean, it's got a lot of uptime, and to crash like right before that would be weird. Okay, anyway, you can install the SSH key. You can see that one actually did go through. Let me go into the site. Well, I'll go to scheduler first, but this is our scheduler. So like I said, by default, it's got this little schedule run thing. I can just go ahead and pick custom, which will reveal your custom box, or I can do nightly, just schedule it. We might not see it come back because pusher's overloaded, but you can see it just pops down here and starts scheduling. It shows you the frequency down there. Pusher worked this time, so it actually is updated. It's ready to go. I can view the log, which there shouldn't really be any available right now. You can see no log information available, but normally you would get that output. By default, I didn't mention this during the talk, we do install a cron job to keep your composer up to date nightly on your server. So your composer should always be up to date on any Forge server, and we update that nightly at midnight. Does that make sense? Yep.
Sorry, just the saving from Google. Did you put the placeholder text in the fetch input boxes, or like what the stars are?
I could, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be handy. He said, could I put like a little hint on what these boxes are in case you don't know, in case you're not like a cron wizard. All right, so I'll go ahead and delete that cron. I don't have anything there. This demons thing, which I didn't mention this during the talks, this is, I don't know, I felt like this was a little nerdy. That might not apply to everyone, but say you want to start a React server. This is an easy way to just type in like kind of any arbitrary thing. So PHP artisan, home, Forge user, default, maybe your React is like app.php, and you can start that. What that does is configure supervisor to keep that process up and auto restart it. So it's just like a basic way to manage any kind of like long running process like that. Your network, this is really slick. This is one of my favorite features. Being able to spin up 2 or 3 servers. I just pop into network, hit update, it'll say updating, and that's configuring that firewall on that server to let this server access. You can see it's done, and I can now use that like as a database server or something like that. So super, super fast and easy to do that kind of stuff. I can add any kind of firewall rule. So like say I was going to do that React PHP thing, I would actually need to add like a firewall rule, and I can give it a label like React on whatever port. I can limit that IP address. Probably I want like outside traffic to be able to get in. I would just add that firewall rule. It would configure that. Probably most people aren't going to need to mess with any of this. It is set up pretty decent by default. But if you did want to kind of set up like a React thing to play with, maybe just kind of experimenting or even doing something for real, you could come in here and manage that if you want to. Okay, I'll get rid of that. I can disconnect this server. Let's say I don't want this server to have access to that server anymore. Just uncheck it, hit update. A few seconds later, it'll be good. And of course, if say this server that I'm on right now is deleted, we will go into that other server and get rid of those IP table rules. So that's all done automatically for you. The monitoring stuff, I don't really have a new Relic license ready to show you, but this is where you could configure that really easily. Okay, so I'll show you some of the deploy stuff. I don't have a repository on this, so if I hit this site, this little white arrow up here in the corner, if I hit that, you can see it takes me to that IP, and there's just a basic PHP info page, 5.5.12. Let's deploy something out there. I've got a project called Laravel Test Deploy. That's just a base Laravel install. I'm going to type it in, hit install composer dependencies, master branch. It's going to install that repo for me onto the site. Composer install is pretty fast. If you have a composer lock file, it's not like composer update. It's really pretty quick, so it shouldn't be a very long wait to get that ready. What do you think so far? Pretty neat? Is this worth it? This is all Angular. I was using Angular on the, this actually was not any front-end framework at first. Like for a long time, it was just like, I didn't know any front-end framework, so it was really lame. You like had to refresh the screen. And Jesse O'Brien saw like an early version of that where I was like, just keep hitting F5. It doesn't refresh. But anyway, I started working on stuff for Snappy with Angular, and I was like, oh, this is pretty nice. I could actually use this on Forge. So like I started kind of trying to convert it, and now it's on Angular, which is really cool. It's all I know in terms of JavaScript frameworks, but I really liked it. Okay, this repo is installed. If I hit the white arrow, boom, Laravel, done. We're ready to go. My deployment script is here, so it's just the default script. I actually have this on my machine, so I'll show you. Let's see, let me get this out of full screen so I can kind of see both. Okay, get out of here. This is the test deploy repo right here that we have installed on this machine. What I'm going to do is click right here to enable quick deploy. That's ready to go. All what that did is add the GitHub. It connected to the GitHub API and added that hook for me, that service hook. Let me just make like a little README change. I'll just delete that line. Change README. I'll commit that. And now when I push, see that active up here in the top right? Watch that as I push this out. If pusher's not overloaded. See, it's deploying. Sorry, it's not live updating, but that will change to deploying when that's pushed out. And then when that's done, it will swap back to active so that you know it's ready to go. I think this default deploy script has that migrate in it, which I don't have a database set up, so it's going to take like 10 seconds to time out. But that will come back. And if you're not using a database, just delete that out of your deployment script and save it, so it will make it quite a bit faster. So I can just go ahead and remove that, save the script, and so that now it won't migrate anymore when I push. Okay, so that finished, so it's ready to go.
Does it use Envoy to actually execute those scripts?
No, it doesn't use Envoy. So that's kind of the basic deployment stuff. If I want to, I can just hit deploy now. That will kind of do the same thing. We'll say queued for deployment. Once it actually is in the process of deploying, that will change to deployment. And then, of course, we'll swap back to active, which it's already done. That was a fast one because I got rid of that migrate, so it was a lot faster. Pretty nice. So one thing I've kind of used this for already is like, say I have something I just want to hack around on, I'll spin up a Forge server, throw the repo out there. I can just give an IP address or a domain or a link or whatever to Eric or Ian or someone I'm working with, and it's a real easy way just to hack on something and have something up in a few minutes. And then once I'm done, I can just uninstall that repository and do whatever, maybe put another one on there. And of course, if you're using this for your site, you would just point your DNS record to that IP, and you've got your domain pointing to that server. With the environment stuff, here I can just add a key and a value. And I don't really need an environment by default, just production. It will add that to that environment file, and so it will be available to me. Really simple. Okay. Queue, this is really cool. I mean, I'll just click this like 3 times. Start up some workers. I can run one in daemon mode, and they'll all fire up. It's really quick. It's really easy to get started with a queue. If you've never done it before, don't be intimidated by it. It's really super simple to set up. Once those are up and running, I can view their status. So I can see it's been up for 11 seconds, and if I need to, I can restart that queue worker right here, and just it will restart right there on the site, and it will be live updating, so you'll see when it's back up. If I have too many workers, say my SQS bill is really high, maybe I just kind of scale it back to one worker, really easily done. So it's pretty. I mean, you don't even really have to think about any of the configuration stuff. Just come in here and click a few buttons, and you're good to go. Well, you just get the box and the public IP, and you can kind of do your DNS however you want, so whatever you want to do, really, sure. And like if you're configuring a subdomain, on Forge, like if I come to the server and I have, let's say this was like Laravel.com, and I make paste.laravel.com, and then I would just point that would be, you could do like an A record or whatever you want to there. For that subdomain to that IP address, and it will work. So, and we'll have an FAQ, explaining like, how do I do a subdomain? I created the subdomain in Forge. Now what do I do on my hover.com or namecheap.com to get my domain to that? It's all explained really well, so no problem. Okay, delete that guy. Let me go back to and the SSL, like say I just fill this out for me, Laravel IT, and it will just create that signing request for me. It just takes a few seconds, and then I can go buy my certificate, come back, install it, and activate it. Really simple. Make sense? Is that easier than the manual way? For me, that's like a lot faster than I like. You can just grab your CSR right there. Just take it to Namecheap or wherever you want to get your certificate.
Is there like a copy button, or when you click it,
You'd have to select it, but yeah, sorry. It's not trash the whole thing. Here's recipes. I'll show you that real quick. This is that Mongo one, which is just dummy stuff right now. Just do stuff, echo. But I would come in here and just hit run. I have 4 servers. I could just select all these. I need a select all button before Mitchell complains about that too. Select all these servers, and it will run it across all those servers and email you the results to your account, your email account. So, yep.
Is there any place to get recipes from, like, let's say, the community?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think it would be cool if you could kind of like share recipes. There's nothing like that right now. You could like put up a gist or something and just like kind of like link to it, like here's how I do something, and people can kind of copy it. But there's no kind of built-in like community anything right now. It's just really just your account, no sharing or anything. Yep. Red shirt, yeah.
So does the reconfiguration, if you've got, if you're making changes in Forge in the web page, but you're also SSHing your server and you're making changes, how does that deal with conflicts like that?
Usually, for most stuff Forge does, you wouldn't really have a conflict much. Like if you just, even if you tweaked like an Nginx file, it wouldn't bother Forge. You know what I mean? You could configure that a little custom, and not everything you do obviously would be recognized by Forge. So if you like manually added an Nginx site, Forge doesn't know about that. But typically, you're not going to run into any crazy conflicts or anything. Only one thing that you could run into is the SSL stuff, but we actually put a comment block in your Nginx configuration that says don't delete this because it will mess up your SSL on Forge. So there is that's the one spot that I can think of, but we do put a warning there if you're in your server, like, hey, be careful if you delete this, know what you're doing. And it won't like blow up Forge or anything, but it won't work. Your SSL won't configure automatically. Yep.
Are Forge accounts only individual user-based? Did you have an organization structure with users with various permissions?
Right now, it's just individual user-based. Yeah, but I imagine like that would be something to add to the list, would be adding people to accounts or inviting people to share accounts. So I could envision that, but it's not in there right now. Yep.
Sort of in the same vein as the gentleman that asked about SSHing in SafeBox.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if I go around there and like stamp around on all my config, screw everything up, is there a chance for me to maybe take a snapshot with Forge?
Not directly in Forge, but of course, like Linode or DigitalOcean, you could go log because you own that account. Your server's on that account, so just you could go in, say, take snapshot, and and then you could restore it from there if you wanted to. But I haven't baked that in because I would have to iron out like all the differences between the providers to make that all seamless. So right now it's kind of like the basics of getting your server up and running, queues, getting your site out there, stuff like that. Yep.
So is Forge capable of, or have you planned for the future to allow deploying a single application to multiple servers and maybe having load balance?
Yeah, I have explored that. It's not done, but I would say that I'm looking at that. Yeah. Of course, load balancing you would do it different on different providers. So like Linode has a node balancing service with an API, which I could tap into, but others like DigitalOcean don't. Amazon does. They have Elastic Load Balancer. Rackspace does too. So it's kind of just like getting this initial thing out there, let it sit for a little bit, and let me take a break, and get some sleep. and then maybe in a month or two, maybe I can, we'll kind of see what people say they want and see what I can realistically do, But that being said, say you use something like Linode, that is super easy to set up a load balancer. So spin up 2 servers in Forge, log into Linode, and literally just like check a few boxes, and you're done. So I mean, we're pretty close, really. Same with Amazon, of course, is really easy to do load balancing as well. Yes.
Have you considered adding support for Puppet? Because a lot of the recipe stuff seems like a very basic version of that.
Yeah.
Since there's already a big community around packaging this type of stuff, like installing Mongo or
Yep.
installing whatever.
Yeah.
In the Puppet community, it might be useful to just tie into that. And
Yeah.
Puppet.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, Puppet or Ansible or anything like that would be cool. Of course, there's like so many things you could do, right? And it's like you kind of have to narrow down in terms of what you want the vision for it to be, or like what you kind of want the emphasis to be for a product. So like, I could go so many different directions, but like my emphasis or what I'm going for is kind of like for most web people, this is what they want to deploy their apps out on. This works for them. And of course, there's a lot of things we could do, like node balancing or Ansible or Puppet, and those are things I think that we'll have to get like feedback on and see what I can put into it and what kind of time commitment, but kind of what the community wants, because things will arise, kind of bubble up to me on Twitter, and I'll get a lot of requests like, hey, it'd be cool if we got this, and then we can kind of evaluate what works for most people. Yeah.
Forge itself have an API?
And that would be cool. It doesn't right now, but yeah, that would be cool. And actually, it wouldn't be too hard just because of the way, obviously, that like a JavaScript JSON type app works. It's kind of already sort of API centric, so that would be cool. That would actually be somewhat of not a momentous undertaking to have an API. But all right, let me just go ahead and I can enable this site now. I actually had this like really kind of rigged up, but SSH Forge. Let me see. Yeah. See, I've got a landing page up. You can go to it. Okay, you can come out here, and this is, you can hit this on your phone and read about it. It's mobile, thanks to Eric Barnes. Helped me iron out a few kinks with that mobile version. But read about some of the highlights and how it works. And of course, we'll try to push this out Monday, basically early this week, let's say. And we'll get it pushed out, and you can log in and start messing around. Okay, so that's Laravel, Forge, Homestead 4.2, all the updates there. Hopefully it gives you a really nice, I have an idea, I want to take it to fruition, and to really know, for me it was always, I have to configure a server, I have to set up a subdomain, it's going to suck, and it's I'm just not going to do this cool idea. But now, there's nothing in the way, you can kind of explore, I feel like, your creativity a little more, and you have an idea, spin up a server, throw something out there. It's a really easy way to kind of play with something. So basically just trying to get all the roadblocks out of the way of your creativity, basically, and make it really easy for you, because Linode and DigitalOcean provide a really nice, affordable VPS, and if we can kind of speed up that process of onboarding onto that, that's really nice. And we also have promotions from Linode upstairs. We have a lot of promotional cards. You can get on board with Linode at a discount, so pick one of those up at the after party as well. Anything else? Yep.
One question is if someone, registers creates an account and then stops his account, archive their servers, and later on he wants to reopen his account. What about that?
You can just do it. Just cancel your account. I mean, I don't delete it. So yeah, say you did cancel it, you could reactivate it, but also, you don't have push to deploy if you do that. That's kind of the one caveat. So you would lose push to deploy and any kind of further management at that point. But all right, so weight off my shoulders here. Any more? Yeah. Yep.
I just want to say congratulations for keeping a secret.
Keeping a secret? Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to overhype it, but I felt like it was pretty valuable. But, I don't know. We'll see. Get in there and play around on Monday, because, I think you'll be impressed once you start using it, how fast it is to get something up and running. It's pretty nice once you're using it. When I think about not having Forge now, just personally, it makes me very sad, and I think that's a good thing. Just I just know that that means it's actually a helpful thing. I had similar thoughts about Laravel, in the beginning. If I didn't have Laravel, that would really suck. And so I feel the same way about Forge. So that makes me pretty confident in how I think the community will receive it as well. Someone back here had it. Yeah.
Do you have any plans to support additional Git servers?
Yeah, I do. I have some ideas. I have some ideas to support any VPS. I've seen it done, and I know how it could be done. I just need to, eventually find the time to do it. But it's feasible to support almost any VPS. If you could SSH in yourself initially, and then you would paste a command which would initiate that whole bootstrap process, then you could support any VPS fairly easily. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll get the initial feedback and just see kind of where things go. But yep.
What about like Bitbucket or GitLab, other Gits?
Tell Bitbucket to improve their API. It's horrible.
I'm more concerned about GitLab.
GitLab? I haven't looked at it. I can look at it. I started looking at Bitbucket. I'm sorry, but that API was really bad, and like it was getting close to, but we'll see. I don't know.
GitLab's pretty good. I wrote the Laravel wrapper for it, and it works pretty well.
Okay. That's kind of a self-hosted thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I use primarily now, and the API is actually incredibly similar to GitLab. So.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, that could be cool. Yep.
If I have auto-scaling instances that scale up and scale down, will this track all that as well?
On Amazon, no, it wouldn't track it for you. No. So if you're going to do that, if you're at that level with Amazon, maybe this isn't the right fit for that scenario, But yeah, it wouldn't track it for you. Yeah.
Where can we find out more about Homestead?
Homestead, I will push it up. Maybe it's already on this branch. All right, all those docs are going up. Let me see. Okay, so those docs should be up in like 5 minutes. They refresh automatically, so. I can go ahead and make those refresh for you. Let me think how this works. I don't come in here very often. Gosh. Type that command very carefully. There's Homestead. It's right on the website, ready to go. So. Here in the release notes, that wasn't just the Homestead docs. That was like all the 4.2 docs, like really updated. So if you come out to the release notes, you can see stuff on Forge, Homestead, Cashier, QWorker. Everything's all here. Homestead is ready to go. You can download it. Please, that DigitalOcean box it's sitting on, it's like 3 terabytes a month bandwidth, so I have to kind of monitor that, but I think it should be good. I'll keep an eye on it, but you can go ahead and add that beggar box. You can use it tonight if you want. I've been using Homestead for, I guess, about a month now on all my Snappy stuff, and Eric's been using it, and it's been pretty nice. I've been pretty sold on it. It'd be really nice, I think, too, if someone has an issue with Laravel, like on GitHub, and they say, and a lot of times we have to ask, like, what's your PHP configuration? What's your whatever operating system? This provides a really nice way. Oh, I'm on Homestead. Oh, okay, we know exactly what that looks like, Yep.
You've got Homestead, you've got Scepter. Do you have any other Oregon Trail references?
Let me think. I don't think so. No Laravel dysentery yet. Laravel gives some people dysentery, though. Let's see. What else do I have other stuff to push up. Yeah, website. Go ahead and do this. Yep. We time? Okay. Sorry. after this, we are heading to the after party. This is old.
What's the last time you looked at the pull requests for the website?
A long time, as you can tell, probably. I'll go look. Anyway, Forge, there's a link out there. Laracon EU's out there now. So anyway, we can talk at the after party.